Good afternoon, everybody. We're so much looking forward to welcoming you all back to campus. I'm actually in my office right now, and I'm very pleased to be here. It's nice to get out of my apartment and get back to the community and be able to see people in the hall. There's a few people around now, so really look forward to, as many of you start to come back, that we'll be able to be together again. Really want to thank everybody for pulling together through this last challenging, really 18 months. It's kind of amazing that we've done it that far, but I'm really proud of the TC community about the way they've responded to these challenges, whether your faculty or staff, even the students. So I think that's been wonderful. As far as our kind of an overview of our financial picture, we continue to have a small deficit this year. As you know, the deficits were really primarily from the residence halls that were not full. Our enrollment picture for the summer was quite good, so that the projected deficit that we had did come down. And we do have a balanced budget projected for next fiscal year, which starts in September. And our enrollments so far for the fall look like we're on target to meet those goals. So that's good news. In this session, we are going to talk about the return to campus policies and procedures. Those are going to continue to be rolled out over the summer. So we'll talk about the vaccinations, remote work, events and visitors, as well as our mask policies. So as I said, we expect those policies and procedures to be evolving. We'll continue to have additional town halls this summer to address them. Certainly keep track of our website because we're constantly updating our policies as they evolve, as we develop them further, and of course as the conditions might change. So members of the cabinet are here today to walk through the existing policies and answer your questions. So feel free to add questions to the chat box, and we will answer as many as we can at the end of the program. We did receive many questions before, and the answers to those are pretty much incorporated into the remarks that each of us has. So let me pass this to our provost, Stephanie Rowley.
Well, thank you, Tom. It's so wonderful to be thinking about getting back to campus in the fall. So glad that so many people could join us today. So as Tom pointed out, we're excited to welcome students to campus, faculty and staff to campus. As we've announced, we're expecting the vast majority of our courses to be in person again, and have had some discussions with some faculty about whether or not they can teach in person. And so we have a process that has gone forward for giving exceptions for people who have a health problem or some other issue that will preclude them from teaching in person. So in all, about 10% of our faculty, between 5 and 10%, have requested and been granted exceptions. And so the vast majority of our instructional staff will be in person. Similarly, about 10% of our students, about 500 students, have requested exceptions to in-person classwork. So the vast majority of the exceptions were given for health-related concerns or some travel-related concerns. I should note that we're hoping that the students will all work through our return to campus email account to request the exceptions. I know that some staff and some faculty have been approached about allowing students to take courses remotely. And we really do want to make sure that we're using an equitable process in considering those requests. So please send people to the return to campus at TC email in order to request an exception. We will let faculty know and the staff in programs and departments know which students are going to be online and which students are going to be in person. Our Digital Futures Institute representatives will be contacting each and every faculty member to say, first, how many students we expect in their classes to be in person versus online, and then also to offer technical support in preparing for those students. So because we'll have a sense of whether they'll have no students, so a good chunk of our courses will have no students that will be online. We'll have probably the majority of classes that will have 1 or 2 students who are going to be participating online, and then just a handful of classes where a significant number of students will be online. So Digital Futures will be reaching out in July and August to set up those meetings. They are preparing classrooms. Now that classrooms have been determined, faculty will be able to get into those classrooms to test the technology. Folks from DFI will be there to help you to practice and also just to plan. So we feel really good about the support that our instructional staff are going to receive in preparing for what could be a mix of in-person and online instruction. And we're excited that the campus will be open. So the library will be open and there will be meetings and other activities on campus that will go forward. So next we have Hank Perkowski, who is going to talk more about these issues.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I think most of the things I'm going to concentrate on is really health and safety at the college, just because we really received a whole bunch of questions on how we plan to keep the campus safe and how we can guarantee someone's health, especially in the light of the recent Delta variant and the uptick in cases. I guess I'll start out by saying is that there's a lot of information and guidance out there related to COVID, some from authoritative organizations and others just individual opinions. The college is following the guidance of the CDC, from our friends at Columbia University Medical Center, and of course, New York State. We currently have no specific threshold on when or if our plans for the fall will change, but instead we're going to continue to listen to these bodies and try to apply it to the individual specific TC situation. But just to touch on health, and I think the biggest thing we've done from a health perspective is requiring the vaccine for the fall semester. Based upon all the most recent knowledge, the vaccines seem to be effective in mitigating the severe effects of the Delta variant. The fact that we have required the vaccine with limited exceptions should move us more towards the goal of keeping everybody healthy. I think the second largest thing we've done is related to the ventilation systems at the college. The college has installed advanced air filters, which we change on a regular basis. Our HVA system is doing 6 to 7 air changes per hour, bringing fresh air into the college, which is above the CDC guidance. In addition, the college has proactively procured over 120 air purifiers to service areas which are not serviced by the college's HVAC unit. Like I said, we proactively did this work with the air purifiers, but when you return to campus, if you feel that your space has been overlooked and may need an air purifier, just please put in a work order and we'll come out, we'll take a look at it. And if indeed it's something we overlooked, we will supply an air purifier funded centrally by the college. We'll also say that if we come out and we look and we feel the airflow is sufficient, you may also procure an air purifier if that makes you feel more safe. Specifically, the college has identified air purifiers that can be obtained from the purchasing department to fill those orders. The mask mandate. Tom mentioned the mask mandate really briefly, but the college plans to maintain the mask mandate for the fall semester. If you're sitting at your desk or working, you do not need to wear a mask. If you're an instructor, you have the option to wear a mask, but it's expected that students wear a mask in the classroom. I think it's also reasonable that the college not enforce the mask mandate in residential units. And as well as if someone's actively eating, because You can't eat if you have a mask on. But for the most part, masks are required everywhere else on campus. The only exception may be if you're in a meeting in a private conference room or in a private office, and all the members of the meeting agree that a mask is not required, a mask will not be required there. The final item from a health perspective, which we've addressed, is we've installed plexiglass on all front-facing desks. Similar to the air purifiers, if you feel we have missed something, please put in a work order and we'll come out and address it. The other thing I want to address is events. And so we came out with a statement a couple of weeks ago because we think events are an important part of what the college does. But at the same time, we want to minimize risk. That is why we are limiting external events starting after October 1st to no more than 50 vaccinated individuals with a limited amount of events allowed per day. This way, we can continue to do this important work, albeit at a smaller scale than once we did. I will also say, where possible, we should try to continue to hold our external events remotely. For internal events, and actually let me take a step back there, an internal event is defined as consisting of only TC community or Columbia community members. External events means outside parties could potentially be there. For internal events, the number of individuals allowed at these events is defined by the occupancy allowed in the space in which the event occurs. Again, we think it is important for students to be able to experience internal events as they come back to campus. A question came in late just before we came on related to the college's dining vendor. A committee consisting of a cross-section of the community has chosen AVI as our dining vendor, and we are hoping to have the dining hall open for the fall semester, along with what I would hope to be some level of catering. It's hard for me to imagine the buffet style of events, which we've had in the past. I'm thinking something more of a box lunch. But again, we've just selected AVI, starting to work through the details with them, and we'll hopefully be able to come out with some guidance and hopefully some good news where we return some level of normalcy in the fall. I guess I'm just going to close with similar to what I opened with is it's a very fluid situation. Guidance changing, we changed drastically in March 2020. The guidance we're providing right now is what we think is the best for the fall. But as things change, we will change as well. I'm now going to pass it on to Janice, who will talk about vaccines as well as other topics.
Well, thank you, Hank. Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for taking the time to be with us. My job is to discuss the medical and religious exemption steps for faculty and staff. But before I do that, I want to acknowledge that we have received several questions about the Delta variant, and Hank has talked about that. And I just wanted to reassure that we are quite aware of the Delta variant and its increase, particularly for those who may not be vaccinated yet. We are working in tandem with Columbia University, and we are staying aware of the changing concerns. We are continuing to go forward with our careful health and safety protocols as Hank has described. On to the exemptions. As you know, all faculty and staff and housing affiliates must receive the vaccination. However, there are two exceptions by law. That's for medical exemptions and for religious exemptions. And we have set up an uncomplicated process for you to request that. So for medical exemptions, they may be granted once you fill out a form. It's not a complicated form, and it can't be more than 6 months old. It needs to be signed by a certified licensed healthcare provider. And that provider cannot be related to the submitter. And that healthcare provider needs to have a specialty in the area associated with the condition. So the bottom line is you fill out a form, you have your healthcare provider, licensed healthcare provider certify, and then you will submit it. For the religious exemption, we know that it may be granted if one, the individual holds sincere religious beliefs which are contrary to the practice of vaccination. Two, you complete the form, and you provide the required documentation that's in support of the exemption request. And that is by a faith provider. And you submit the forms. The forms will come to the Office for Diversity and Community Affairs, and we will provide the exemption, provided that you have filled out the forms and provided the necessary support for that. If you have been approved for an exemption, you will be required to wear a mask and at all times, and also to submit to a weekly COVID PCR test as well. So for those who are not vaccinated, one will have to do that. We're quite aware of the multitude of concerns that lots of people have and rightfully have. And so we are cognizant and thoughtful as we continue forward with our plans for reopening. There was a question about Hollingworth and childhood programs and their protocols. And let me just remind everyone that Hollingworth and the early childhood programs have worked with the COVID task force, public safety, as well as environmental health and safety and facilities to ensure that their protocols are in place and being followed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Seals, our Vice President for Administration.
Thank you, Janice. Good afternoon, everyone. So I will be just reiterating and providing some updates around the phased return to campus as units, are planning right now on identifying who are the staff that will be returning as of the 9th. We sent out our communication earlier in the spring, and I know there were some questions about the return date. We are saying that the week of August 9th is the official phased return. That may look different depending on where you work at the college. The HR services team has been working with units across the college to identify their operational needs and also where employees will need some flexibility. So what I've been hearing across the board is that there's some hybrid work where there's 3 days in the office, 2 days out, seems to be the common theme. There are also some folks who are front facing who are going to be in more regularly. And we are working with groups to just identify where there are issues or concerns, where we can help think about how to be creative. But I'm encouraging everyone at this point to have had a sense of what those plans look like. If you have questions, your first point of contact should be your supervisor or your manager. If there are additional questions, concerns that you may have outside of the vaccine requirement and you think that you need some type of workplace accommodation, please reach out to the HR office so that we can guide you in terms of what are the options that are available as you're considering a return to campus. The other questions we've gotten with regard to a phased is around our clerical staff, 2110, and really facilitating flexible work for those folks. And we have submitted our proposal to the union. And they are also eager to come up with an interim plan along with TC, and I think that will be successful. We're just waiting for a response so that we can then formally communicate out and provide some guidance. What I will say is hopefully within the next week we can get back to the community, but I wouldn't stop planning for the process. So I would say engage with your union staff, union employees. If you have questions about your work schedule, engage in those conversations as we wait to get a response from the union. I'll just go through some of the questions in addition to the union staff and flexible work. There were some questions around flexibility in terms of having everyone work remote on Fridays. Like I said earlier, I think that looks different depending where you are at the college. And so each unit should evaluate their operational needs and work with employees to determine what staggered schedule will look like. I think it's important to manage folks' expectations that it's really a discussion around first, what do the operations look like? And then what are the needs of the employees, and try to find a happy medium within that. I will share that we do have a telecommuting and flex work policy and an accompanying form with guidance. So please review that documentation. If you have any questions, you are welcome to reach out to HR. I know this is kind of a new concept that we're introducing. So the fall is really an opportunity for folks to phase in and have some time to kind of figure out what those schedules look like and how they might work. So it's not something that we're expecting you to do on your own. There is help and guidance. There's the website, there's your HR generalist that you can reach out to. But I would encourage employees, if they have questions about their schedule, the first point of contact should be your manager or your supervisor. The other piece I will say is many of you probably have not been to campus since March of 2020. And so there's a lot has changed in terms of how we access campus. So, you know, and some of you have been hired have never been to campus. So I would encourage you to visit the preparedness site, specifically the daily health screening portion, right? What are those requirements that I need to be aware of before I even come to campus, right? You know, there's a training that was done by Environmental Health and Safety. We're updating that now. There's going to be a refresher, but that's an expectation. So you should check, make sure that you completed that training, because that's a one and done. There's also the vaccination upload and making sure that that is in place. We have a health compact that should be reviewed, which is really, you know, for all of us and our responsibility as a community of how, when we come back, what are the rules of engagement? How do we interact with each other, right? How do we, you know, it's a different place, you know, the way that we work together in March of 2020 is very different than what it's going to look like come fall. So just putting a, you know, thinking in your mind, what do I need to do to prepare? IT also sent out some information last week in terms of support and thinking about what technology that you're going to need once you get to campus, if you're going to be on campus. So I just encourage you, we are working right now on a checklist to help you think about those things that may not be top of mind as you come to campus, so that you're not having to troubleshoot on your first day. The other piece is, as Stephanie mentioned, the Digital Futures Institute. They've been running some workshops and sessions for faculty to help in thinking about developing curriculum and classroom support and setup. IT is also available, media services, if you need some support in transitioning and between courses, setting up your classes, your classrooms. IT is available as well. So we have all this information and more online. We will continue with we've got 2 more town halls, because as Hank said, things are very fluid and changing, and we will be responsive. We're aware and keeping up abreast of all the changes that are going on, and want to make sure that you all are returning to a safe workplace. And with that note, I will turn it over to Amy Howley, who is part of the Staff Advisory Support Council. She will be mediating for us and providing some questions from the audience.
Okay. Our first question is for Janice. A member of our community plans on returning to the office from August the 2nd, and they would like to know how recent their PCR test needs to be.
Yes, so at the moment, the rule for the summer visit is you need to submit a negative PCR test after May 1st. So that's good, particularly if yours was done on July 12th. It's still good, and no, you do not have to take another one before you come in on August 2nd, if I'm reading that correctly.
So I will just clarify, if you haven't been to campus and you are going to do a PCR test, it needs to be within 14 days of coming to campus. So if you've
Correct.
already done a test in May, you've been to campus, you submitted it, you don't need to submit a new test. However, if you haven't submitted any tests prior to coming on campus, it needs to be within the 14 days. So if you're coming on the 2nd, your test should have been from July 20th.
And then can we clarify, from August 9th, is the PCR test also required? And when does that have to be dated by?
So again, we're saying, I think Hank, will clarify that. We're not going to ask for a new test if you've already been to campus, right? But if you are coming for the first time to campus, that test will have to have been within 14 days.
Okay.
Yeah. So really, it is the later of May 1st or within 14 days of the last time we came onto campus.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to stick with Janice for a second question about vaccination. In this question, it's about the vaccination documentation. If we've already submitted it, can we expect confirmation when it's been approved?
I'm going to give that one to Lisa.
I'll
Because
take
she's
it, yeah.
she's doing the
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
So we had a glitch in the system for a bit. So we are, I think folks most recently have been getting a formal response saying that we have received your vaccination and is on record.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is for Hank. It's a question about campus clearance for family members. If we're able to clear family members to come onto campus, and also how do we reactivate our IDs, or do we need to reactivate them?
There really should be no need. The second question is much easier than the first one. There's really no need to reactivate your ID. I mean, I don't know this off the top of my head, but I think your ID expires after 10 years. So if you've gone between year 8 and 10, yes, you're going to have to reactivate your ID, but I think that's probably a small percentage of the people who are asking questions. To get family members on campus, obviously affiliates within the residential units, there's a process by which they can submit their vaccinations in order to get back into the residential units and to come and go. For other family members, that would probably fall under the visitor policy of the college. We came out with an events policy, which again are bigger things, which I described before, internal, external, up to 50 people for external, no limit for internal. We're working through the pieces of the visitor policy at this point in time. Again, hope to have something, shortly that would cover specifically a family member who came on campus, a contractor who's coming on campus, things like that, people who are coming just for like a day or for an hour. We are trying to outline the requirements for that, and we'll hopefully come up with a little more guidance within the coming weeks. But I will also say family members who are not affiliates are not allowed on campus during the summer. So that, that may change in August once we go from summer to preparing to fall, and hopefully provide some guidance on that soon.
May I add that for the family affiliates who are residing on campus and you've been vaccinated, just go to the website, to the preparedness website, and you'll be able to upload your proof of vaccination there.
Okay, great. And now we have a question about the events for 2021, if we need to do a new approval process for any events for 2021.
Yeah, so we pretty much have the form just about ready. We're going to launch the form by which you would be able to fill it out. It's going to go into a committee to review, who's reviewing all events. Look for an announcement on that any day now. We had a form for the summer events. It looks similar to that with just some changes associated with it, specifically the 15-person limit for external events and some of the items I touched on already.
Okay, great. And I think this one might go to Stephanie. It's about students. If students reach out expressing financial hardship moving to New York City, especially if they're registered for classes that are online and not in person? Is there a certain language that we should use with them to help them make their decision?
So I just put in the chat there, the return to campus at TC email account. It's really important that faculty and staff are not approving student requests for remote instruction. So we really want the process to be equitable, and we have folks in enrollment and student affairs and OASID who are reviewing requests for exceptions, and they have a whole process, and we'll talk to students to make sure that they are able to take classes in the way that makes the most sense for their particular situation. So send the students there to talk with folks.
Great.
And then the one thing I did hear in that question as well was financial hardships. So that the college has received money from the federal government for emergency student aid, and the financial aid office has reached out to existing students, and there's a short application process for that. There is still money left, and if you hear a student who has a financial hardship due to COVID, you should ask them to reach out to the financial aid office. I believe they have it on their website, so that's probably the first place to go. But there is money there to help students who have a financial hardship due to COVID.
Great, thank you. And the next two questions are related, and that is, will there be a gateway test for the fall semester that's required for September? And if there is, why is it required if we're already, if we have a validated vaccine? You have Janice, I think. Would you like to take that, or Lisa?
I believe
Sure.
that, Lisa, Hank, that we're in the process of making a decision about whether we will require a gateway test coming in. Lisa, Hank, do you want to fill in?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, Lisa, please go.
So the gateway test is essentially what we just discussed. If you haven't been on campus and you haven't submitted a test as of May. And the reason why we're doing this, Columbia is really driving, and we share a campus. I always like to reiterate, it's not just TC, and Columbia is doing the same in terms of requiring a gateway, which meaning it's that one time when you enter campus, and then after that it's not required. And it's just to really get a check and a sense of, you know, how many folks have been vaccinated, or how many, you know, what's the prevalence of virus on campus. So I anticipate, you know, that is going to be the requirement, but we will confirm that in the coming weeks.
The next question is, do we need to schedule in advance if we need a new ID?
I think it would clearly help. If you lost your ID, we have a lot of things for the daily health screen tied to it, whether you've submitted a vaccine, things like that. So if you indicate you've lost your ID, you'll be required to go get the green check before you come into the office. Quite frankly, we really haven't contemplated this, but I'm almost sure what we'll do is someone indicates they've lost their ID, they'll have to get the green check and then go over to the ID center to get their new ID. But if you know you've already lost it, I think it's best to reach out to them to just proactively address that.
Great. And this one I think is for Stephanie. Will non-credit courses run as usual with the same vaccination requirements as regular enrolled students? And what's the process for non-credit students to submit vaccination testing documentation?
That's a great question. So we've been doing non-credit approvals sort of on a case-by-case basis. Hank, do you want to say more about what we've done for the summer and the plan for the fall?
I mean, well, definitely. So for the summer, it was less about non-credit because again, we've been predominantly online, while the summer has more been about the events. And we've had different requirements for events. not to bounce this around the people on the forum here, but Lisa, do you know what we want to do for non-credit? I would think it'd be subject to the same as for credit students. I don't see why we wouldn't do that. But Lisa, do you have any other input on that?
You're muted.
I'm muted, sorry. I agree, Hank. I don't see any reason why we would treat them differently, but I think we'd probably have to talk about it in the group.
Okay, I have a question about the visitor policy. So will the new visitor policy extend to external events in the fall? Anyone who isn't a TC Columbia ID holder, and how will those events be approved moving forward?
Yeah, so we're actually really considering the visitor policy and events as two separate things, though I clearly understand there's an overlap related to it. A visitor, in my mind, is someone just who comes for a day, for an hour, like I said, a contractor. And again, we're kind of, or a family member. So we're trying to work through the processes of that and hope to come out with something soon. An event is something where we have more people there. And that is, those people are subject to getting a vaccine. The event form is just about ready to be sent out. Those events which have external parties at it, which we're defining as an external event, is capped at 50 vaccinated people. We're limiting the number of events per day like that to 4. And those events will need to be between, I want to say 9 and 5, but it might, yeah, I think it's between 9 and 5 normal business hours. The idea there is so that, when we have our high traffic for classes at night, that we're not having events at the same time. I don't know if that answered the question, but again, visitors is, 1 or 2 people in an office coming to do something. An event is something much bigger than that, where we have a speaker. So we've come out with the guidance for events, and we'll come out with the visitor policy very soon.
Great, thank you, Hank. And I think this one's for Lisa. Is everyone being required to submit hours of work? There is one question, and then how detailed do return and remote work plans need to be?
So non-exempt employees are being asked to submit timesheets as per usual. There's no change otherwise. So I'd probably ask a question to the individual to get more information. So I don't think I can say more. And what was the second part?
Sure. The second part was how detailed do return and remote work plans need to be? So in other words, they're asking
okay.
if you need to show what you're working on at home versus what you're working on campus.
In terms of work product or just the plan for remote
Plan
work?
for work.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, we're encouraging departments to really work out a plan so folks know, because if you're having a hybrid work situation going on in your unit, like we'll use HR, for example, we have a master calendar. So we know when folks are in and out. HR is pretty forward facing. So it's going to be important. Folks in the community know when folks are in the office versus out of the office. So I would encourage, just for transparency, and so that it's formalized, that it be documented.
Great, thank you. Another question about ID and passes. I think this goes to Hank. Will we need to continue to physically show our dated green pass, or is it directly tied to our ID?
Right now, the plan is to continue to show the green pass. Again, we are very much tied in with Columbia on that. So we are going to work with them, and if ultimately that changes, that will be along with their guidance. So so just assume we will, and it's for the summer for sure, and most likely the fall. And if that changes, we will let you know.
Okay, great. And while we're on that subject, I have one more question on IDs. If you've been hired in the last few months and submitted an ID photo that has been approved, what's the process of getting your physical ID card to access campus?
I know we mail some of them out. I would, that is probably the most easy process. I would reach out to the ID center if it has not been mailed out to you. And again, I guess the other option would be, but again, this is going to be a little harder if you don't have your ID yet, to actually go to the ID center and pick it up after you've gotten your green check at the front door.
Great, thank you. And then we have a question on testing. Is testing available? So this would be PCR testing. Is it available on or near campus as an option for those who will need to complete the gateway test before returning to campus for the first time?
I'll take that one. So in terms of on or near campus, at this point, I think PCR tests are pretty accessible depending on your insurance and what pharmacies are near you. Columbia University is not doing it unless you were a student. So I would call Columbia Health if you were a student, you're interested in doing that. Otherwise, I would go to your local pharmacy because it's really accessible now.
Manhattan School of
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I was just saying the Manhattan School of Music and Riverside Church had walk-in, but only on select days.
Yes, yeah, Riverside's, I think, is on Saturday, and Manhattan School of Music is 2 or 3 days during the week. Both of those are extremely convenient.
Someone just put in the chat that they're a staff member and they received a PCR test at CU yesterday. I don't know that I would promote that because I don't know that CU is allowing us to do that. So if you want to try it, go right ahead.
Okay, with that, I don't see any more questions in the question box. I'll give it a minute, maybe a second. Nothing's popping up. So with that, that was our final question, I guess. But if you have any questions you might think of after today, remember to email them to return-to-campus@tc.columbia.edu. Again, that's return-to-campus@tc.columbia.edu. Also, be sure to attend the next 2 town hall meetings, all at 1 p.m. on August 17th and September 21st. Thank you to all of the speakers today, and thanks to all of you for attending. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone.